Imagine waking up tomorrow to learn your country owns the second largest stash of the mineral the entire world is scrambling for. We're talking about graphite, the critical ingredient electric car batteries simply can't function without. Picture this, a single colossal deposit, valued at a staggering $16 billion, just sitting there, patiently waiting beneath the rich red soils of central Malawi. Sounds like a dream, right? But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Across Africa, discoveries like this have a notorious habit of making ordinary people poorer, not richer. So the burning question is Malawi about to finally crack the code and rewrite its economic destiny? Or is history, with all its painful lessons, about to repeat itself yet again? Let's dive into the sheer scale of this discovery, because honestly, the numbers sound like they were lifted straight from a Hollywood movie script. At Kasiya, nestled northwest of Lilongwe, diligent geologists have meticulously counted an astonishing 538 million tons of ore. Within that immense rock lie 8.9 million tons of high-grade flake graphite, the kind that makes EV batteries sing, and another 5.5 million tons of rutile, the very stuff that gives paint its brilliant shine and makes titanium incredibly strong. This isn't just any find, it's a Tier 1 project, a designation reserved for only a handful of truly world-class discoveries in the last decade, signifying its global importance and long-term potential. Over its projected 25-year lifespan, this mine is set to churn out an incredible 288,000 tons of graphite every single year. To put that into perspective, that's enough to supply roughly 1 in every 5 electric vehicle batteries built worldwide. Think about that impact. It's no surprise then that Rio Tinto, a global mining heavyweight, has already snapped up a strategic stake, signaling serious confidence in Kasiya's future. Sovereign Metals, the Australian company spearheading the entire operation, just successfully raised another 40 million Australian dollars to keep those bulldozers moving and the development on track. When you add up all the investments, infrastructure, and operational costs, you're looking at the largest industrial investment Malawi has ever seen, a monumental 2 trillion kwacha, which is more than twice the national budget. For a farmer in the surrounding villages, the promise must feel utterly irresistible. Over 1,000 permanent, well-paying jobs, brand new roads connecting communities, a vital 132 kilovolt power line bringing electricity where there was none, and a cutting-edge farming program that's already quadrupled maize yields for early participants. On paper, it genuinely looks like Malawi has just won the lottery, a golden ticket to a brighter future. But here's where the music usually stops, and a far more somber tune begins to play. Africa, a continent bursting with natural riches, holds 40% of the world's gold, 90% of its chromium and platinum, and a staggering 2/3 of the best cobalt. Yet, when adjusted for purchasing power, a heartbreaking 10 of the 20 poorest countries on Earth are found right here. Nigeria, for instance, has pumped out more than $800 billion worth of oil since the 1960s. Today, a shocking 70% of its citizens still struggle to live on less than $2 a day. The gold fields of Eastern Congo, instead of enriching communities, tragically bankroll brutal militias. Guinea's rich iron ore keeps getting shipped out raw, while its desperate youth risk everything, even their lives, crossing the desert just to reach Europe. Economists have a rather polite, academic phrase for this devastating pattern: the resource curse. The gritty, painful translation. If a nation's institutions are weak, if transparency is lacking, then the immense wealth that should be building hospitals, schools, and infrastructure often ends up in private pockets, stashed away in Swiss bank accounts. What's worse, the prices for your single most valuable export can collapse just when you need them most, plunging an already vulnerable economy into deeper crisis. Malawi has seen this grim movie before, and its citizens remember every scene. Back in the 1980s, the Kasiya uranium mine promised a similar bonanza, a gateway to prosperity. But when global uranium prices tanked, the site quickly became nothing more than a fenced-off wasteland, a stark monument to dashed hopes. Malawians are still footing the cleanup bill for that venture, a painful reminder of promises unkept. Memories are long in these parts, and deep-seated skepticism, unfortunately, often feels like the safest bet. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How exactly could Kasiya, with all its promise, still go sideways? There are several critical points in the fine print that give pause. First, consider the ownership structure. Sovereign Metals is listed on the stock exchange in Sydney, Australia. The problem? Malawians can't buy shares on the Lilongwe bourse because, well, there isn't a local bourse to speak of. This isn't just an inconvenience. It means that the dividends, the significant capital gains, and those big juicy checks from the company's success largely leave the country. Local citizens are effectively shut out from directly participating in the financial upside of their own national resource. Second, the graphite itself leaves as a concentrate, a raw, unprocessed material, not as the finished anode that powers a battery. Every single ton exported in this raw form is a ton of potential value-added jobs. Think about the specialized processes of coating, rolling, and assembling these materials. These are sophisticated, higher-paying jobs that, instead of being created in Malawi, end up in factories in China or Europe. Malawi misses out on the crucial economic multiplier effect that comes from processing its own resources. Third, let's talk about the tax code. Malawi already offers mining firms a generous 5-year tax holiday and allows them to bring in plant and equipment duty-free. While this might attract initial investment, it also reduces immediate revenue for the state. If the volatile history of copper prices is anything to go by, once production actually starts, powerful lobbyists will inevitably push for stability clauses. These clauses, often embedded in contracts, freeze tax rates and regulations for decades, effectively preventing the government from adjusting its take, even if commodity prices soar or the country's needs change drastically. It's a mechanism that locks in advantages for the company and limits future state revenue. Fourth, there's the environment. Kasiya plans to use hydromining, a technique that employs high-pressure water instead of explosives. It's certainly clever, quieter, and generates less dust than conventional methods. But here's the rub. It still swallows a massive 60 megawatts of electricity. In a country like Malawi, which already grapples with persistent rolling blackouts, this demand is significant. If that power has to come from a new carbon-intensive coal plant, as is often the case, then Kasiya's touted green credentials for providing battery materials simply evaporate, creating a different kind of environmental burden. Finally, and perhaps most critically, there's governance. Malawi currently ranks a concerning 129th out of 180 countries on Transparency International's Corruption Index. This isn't just a statistic, it has real-world implications. One single, poorly negotiated or leaked mining contract can easily outstrip the entire budget of the Anti-Corruption Bureau for a whole year. In short, the same structural holes in governance and oversight that allowed Nigeria's oil money to disappear are, unfortunately, still wide open in Malawi. History, however, is not destiny. It doesn't have to be a predetermined, gloomy outcome. Botswana, for example, was the second poorest country on the planet at its independence. Then, diamonds were discovered, and its leaders made 3 incredibly astute decisions that fundamentally changed everything. They negotiated a truly equitable 50-50 profit share with De Beers, ensuring that the nation received its fair due. Crucially, they reinvested that newfound wealth wisely, pouring it into education, transforming their human capital. And they established a robust sovereign wealth fund that now cushions every single citizen when global markets inevitably crash. Today, thanks to these strategic choices, Botswana's GDP per capita is a remarkable 7 times Malawi's. It's a powerful testament to what focused, ethical leadership can achieve. Closer to home, there are also glimmers of hope. The Mpatamanga hydropower project just secured a substantial $350 million World Bank grant. This clean renewable energy source could be a game changer. Imagine pairing that clean power with Kasiya's 60-megawatt appetite. Suddenly, you have the potential for the first truly green mine in the region, a powerful symbol of sustainable development. Sovereign Metals has already taken some positive steps, signing a memorandum to build a local nursery that supplies seedlings for land rehabilitation. A small gesture, perhaps, but a clear signal that social license and environmental stewardship matter to them. But the Malawian government can, and should, go much further. They could insist on a 15% free carried stake for the state, meaning ownership without having to invest capital upfront, ensuring direct national benefit. They could ring-fence royalties, dedicating that revenue specifically to a future fund that can only be touched after the ore body is exhausted, providing long-term generational wealth. And they must force every mining house operating in Malawi to list 10% of its equity on a planned Lilongwe exchange, so Malawians can finally own a tangible slice of their own wealth. Furthermore, a powerful sunset clause could be implemented. If value addition plants, the facilities for processing graphite into anodes, are not built within, say, 10 years, then export permits for raw concentrate get drastically slashed. Suddenly, the same graphite that could quietly fly out of the country as raw materials starts anchoring factories, creating jobs, and building industrial capacity right at home. This isn't just about extracting minerals, it's about building a future. The definitive feasibility study, the crucial document detailing the project's viability and plans, is slated to land in the fourth quarter of 2025. After that, it will take up to 6 years for the mine to fully ramp up to its maximum production capacity. This timeline is critical. It gives Malawians precisely one electoral cycle to decide which story ends up being written in their history books. The clock is ticking, and the decisions made now will echo for generations. Encouragingly, civil society groups are already pushing hard for contract transparency. The first concession agreement for Kasiya has actually been published online, a minor miracle by regional standards and a hopeful sign of increased accountability. Parliament, meanwhile, is actively debating a sovereign wealth fund bill, demonstrating a serious intent to manage future mineral revenues more responsibly. The geopolitical stakes are also rising dramatically. Chinese investors, for example, have recently pledged a massive $12 billion for titanium and rare earth projects in the south of the country, intensifying competition and highlighting Malawi's strategic importance in the global critical minerals landscape. If Kasiya collapses into scandal and mismanagement, this entire wave of potential investment and development could stall, crippling Malawi's economic prospects. However, if it succeeds, if it's managed transparently and equitably, then landlocked Malawi could transform into the go-to supplier for Europe's burgeoning battery gigafactories, shipping its vital resources efficiently through the new Nacala rail corridor, bypassing the Indian Ocean entirely and opening up new trade routes. The difference between those two wildly divergent futures comes down to one fundamental thing: whether citizens keep asking awkward, uncomfortable questions faster than politicians can give comfortable, evasive answers. So Malawi's graphite, a blessing or a curse? The ore body itself doesn't care. It will sit there either way, indifferent to human hopes and failures. The variable, the truly decisive factor, is the contract signed, the vigilant monitor watching every move, and the voter who simply refuses to forget. We want to hear from you. What single clause would you add to the Kasiya deal if you had just 5 minutes in the negotiating room? Drop your thoughts below in the comments. And if you want to see more deep dives on Africa's incredible, yet often challenging, resource landscape, hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe too, so YouTube knows that curiosity still pays off. Malawi's graphite treasure holds the potential to bankroll free secondary school education for every single child born this decade, transforming the future of an entire generation. But let's be brutally honest, It could also simply inflate the Swiss bank accounts of a tiny connected elite, while villages downstream drink water tainted by mine runoff. The dust from the Kasiya pits has not yet risen into the air. It hasn't settled on the landscape of Malawi's future. When it finally does, it will carry either the acrid smell of diesel and profound disappointment, or the invigorating scent of a country finally bending its destiny upward, toward genuine prosperity and equitable development. The answer to whether it's a blessing or a curse isn't pre-written in some ancient prophecy. It is being typed into contracts right now, line by painstaking line, comma by critical comma. And the only people who can truly decide that outcome, who hold the power to shape Malawi's fate, are not in Sydney boardrooms or on London trading floors. They are watching this very video.